Hi and welcome. I'm trying to learn social psychology today, group size, and after we've done it, we're gonna do extensor kappa analysis strength training. And if you participate in the extensor kappa analysis strength training, then it's at your own risk. But we have a little chapter before major influence. Let's read it as well. Realizing that people often, and let's more or less text together, we read it in the previous part. Realizing that people often succumb to peer pressure is only the first step in understanding the process of social influence. The next step is to identify the situational and personal factors that make us more or less likely to conform. So we're saying the first thing which they argued in this book is that many people oftentimes are influenced by the people around them, and that they are trying to fit in with what the other people are doing, even if it would mean to do something of which they think that it is wrong. They listed here two examples as experiments. For example, they ask which line has the equal length as the other one. They were themselves able to say the right number, but if they change the experiment a little bit, and before they said their answer it is A, B, or C, 5 people who were scripted and knew to say the wrong answer all said the wrong answer, and oftentimes when the person said also the wrong answer, more or less to fit in is here then said as the reason. So we're saying an important thing to understand what we want to explain here is that we should know that many people oftentimes try to fit in or are influenced by the social people around them and to peer pressure. We know that people tend to conform when the social pressure is intense and they are insecure about how to behave. But what creates these feelings of pressure and insecurity? Here we look at 4 factors: the size of a group, awareness of norms, the presence of an ally, and the personal characteristics of a subject. Okay, 4 things as an introduction, as sneak peeks that they say us what might have an influence whether the person is following the pressure of people around them to accommodate to them and become like them. That would be the size of a group, so how many people are around them. The awareness of norms. I don't really know what we mean with that in detail. That could be quite wide, but probably that we know what to follow, what norms are already there. And the presence of an ally, whether they are alone or just 1 or 2 other people who share their worldview, and the personal characteristics of the subject. So what it is about, I think. Or do we mean the person themselves? Whatever. Group size. They have it all chaptered here. Group size, awareness of norms, and ally and dissent, getting by with a little help, and then also age and sex differences. I think is that it? Characteristics of the subject? Or cultural influences? We don't know, we're going to read on. So, group size. Common sense would suggest that as the number of people in a majority increases, so should their impact. Actually, it is not that simple. Solomon Asch varied the size of groups using 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, or 15 confederates, and he found that conformity increased with group size, but only up to a point. Once there were 3 or 4 confederates, the amount of additional influence exerted by the rest was negligible. Other researchers have obtained similar results. Okay, they're saying it was... Are we able to distinguish these two one day? Solomon Asch, that is the line experiment, I think. Which line has the same length as the other one. And it made a difference if just 1 person before them said the wrong answer, if a person was following, or 2 or 3 or 4. But whether there were no 4 people saying all the wrong answer or 15, the person then who was not knowing what was happening said the wrong one with the same likelihood, which was quite high. But that is the whole point, that the person oftentimes says the wrong answer to fit in, or also because they think they understood the wrong answer. They said in an interview, those who did not conform said they felt conspicuous, crazy, or misfit. So with the first thing. Beyond the presence of 3 or 4 hours, additions to a group are subject to the law of diminishing returns. Beyond the presence of 3 or 4 hours, additions to a group are subject to the law of diminishing returns. As we will see later, Latine likens the influence of people on an individual to the way light Light bulbs illuminate a surface. When a second bulb is added to a room, the effect is dramatic. When a 10th bulb is added, however, its impact is very felt. It makes sense. If the impact would be great between, or is great between one or two people saying the wrong answer, how should that amount of impact keep pace with there being 10 million and 10 million and one? Imagine every time such a big amount. This is just not possible. So it reaches when at some point the flat curve. Economists say the same about the perception of money. An additional dollar seems greater to the person who has only $3 than to the one who has 300. So something similar in economies, that we're saying that the person who has $1 million doesn't really care about one, or let's say 10,000 more, as much as a person who has just 1,000 gets 10 more. So you understand the argument made by some people. Another possible explanation is that I changed the argument. Is this just $1? $1 more to a person who had $1 more. Another possible explanation is that as more and more people express the same opinion, an individual is likely to suspect that they are acting either in collusion or as spineless sheep. So they're saying here, I think they're indicating that at some point the people, no, let's see wrong. What matters is not the actual number of others per se, but one's perception of how many distinct others thinking independently there are. Indeed, Wilder found that subjects were more influenced by two groups of two than by one 4-person group, and by two groups of 3 than by one 6-person group. Conformity increased even further when subjects were exposed to 3 2-person groups. When faced with majority opinion, we do more than just count the numbers of warm bodies. We try to assess the number of independent minds. The saying here is that if all the people are saying one thing together, the people don't see it as individual minds who have all individually come to that answer, but that we have all thought together as one group, just one independent or one thought. And that it reaches the maximum. The people are thinking that people are all spineless sheep. And it has a greater influence if there comes a second time a group which appears to think individually, which claims to see the same. So what we're saying is, with witness people, I think we should make that example because it explains it quite well. If there are witnesses on a group of 10 witnesses, if a whole group says they saw something, a crime or something, that is quite good believed, but it doesn't really add if now 15, 20 or 50 people say the same. It would make way more if there would be just two groups with apparently individual groups with just 3 people in them. So 3 people and 3 people who are all 3 different people of a family and 3 other people of a family who were witnesses of a crime or 2 different neighbors who saw a crime are more likely to believe than be 6 people as if there would be one house with 10 people. That is what we're arguing here. So I think the example is not quite good. So if there's a crime happening on the street and there are 2 neighbors and 1 neighbor, there are 3 and 3 and 10 people living, it is more likely that the people believe these 3 and 3 people, which are 6, as these 10 people because they are seen as 2 individual groups. Okay, now we have group size and the power of numbers, at least what we said here. There's certainly way more to say to that. That means that was the social psychology part. If you're here from social psychology, you can go directly to the next part where we're going to talk about the awareness of norms or whatever. And if you stay here and participate in the extensor couple nerve strength training, then it's better to get on this. Have a good stable stance, arms up, hands form to fists, and bring them down and up. No hands like that, and down. If you participate in this, and we have 3 rules. The first one is that you stop immediately as soon as there's pain. The second one is that we go on. The second one is that we go only as fast as we can go with a little bit of effort. And the third one is that we're not doing it. We just want to strengthen, not to exhaust. You can take now a towel, a t-shirt or a sock, press onto it, and bring the wrist down. Press equally with all 5 fingers. And with your hand. Press and down. And again up. And down. and press the neutral position. Again. Only as far as it all goes painless. Hold it still instead. And with the other hand, press and in. Again out. Again in. And press on top. Down. And up. Hand, press and down. And just press in neutral position. And that was the extended carbon training. I thank you very much. Until next time.